What's in a name? That which we call a rose, by any other name, would smell as sweet. But would it really? A name, especially for companies or products, creates a connection. When you hear the name Sharpie, do you think of just a marker, or do you think of a specific design? When you hear the name Chevy, do you think just a car, or is a specific image brought to mind? Today, we're going to take a look at some products and companies that have, for one reason or another, changed their names. I'm Ollamh, and welcome to 5 Count Friday.
You think you know me? You think you can catch me? You think you can trust me? Nobody knows the secret that I keep deep in my soul.
Not a very well-known change, but this drink was originally created and introduced to the market in 1893 in New Bern, North Carolina. It was made by a man named Caleb Bradham, which makes one wonder why it isn't Caleb's drink. It started off as a drink available at his drugstore, which was a thing back in the day. The recipe had sugar, vanilla, cola nuts, and the digestive enzyme pepsin. In case you hadn't put it together yet, the drink was rebranded 5 years later and Pepsi Cola was born. The idea was a fountain drink that would be appealing and would aid in digestion and boost energy. That's not the only important thing about the naming of this drink, though. In fact, at one point, cola drinks were all being referred to as Cokes. So much so that the name Coke was close to becoming a generic term for any cola drink. Pepsi, however, did not want to be referred to by the name of a competitor, so pushed a campaign to differentiate themselves. This actually helped Coca-Cola brand out. It helped establish that a Coke is not just a cola drink. By Pepsi trying to stand out, they helped prevent Coke from becoming a generic term. Now this one is mired in conspiracies and myths. Just about everyone is aware of the fact that Kentucky Fried Chicken officially changed their name to KFC in 1991. But the reason is much debated. The facts aren't nearly as interesting as the myths. Conspiracy theorists love to tout that the name was changed because of what they were cooking. The theory goes that they were cooking a genetically created creature that has larger breasts and more wings and legs than the standard chicken. Because they are cooking a new type of creature, they're not allowed to use the word chicken. Thus, the initials were used instead. In fact, the name change was a product of the times. In the 80s and 90s, the US population was pushing to become healthier. This meant we started cutting out certain foods from our diets. Heck, for a short time we stopped eating eggs as much because they were bad for us. Then they were good for us, and now it's debated. But one thing we were sure was bad was frying foods in oil. This introduced fats and added cholesterol to our foods that did a real number on our bodies and general health. This was the actual reason for changing the name from Kentucky Fried Chicken to KFC. If you just use the initials, then people aren't saying the word fried, and that makes it sound so much healthier, right? It didn't hurt anything that most people referred to the chain by its initials already, so the change wasn't going to hurt anything. It may sound like something that you'd ask for from a loved one, but does it make you think of the largest search engine in the world? Well, it might have, if things hadn't changed in 1998. In 1996, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, two PhD students at Stanford University, created a search engine with the thought to help organize the seemingly infinite amount of information on the internet. Instead of counting how many times the word appeared on the page, it would analyze the relationship between websites and rank them by relevance. They changed the name from Backrub to Google, a purposeful misspelling of the mathematical term Google, or a 1 followed by 100 zeros. This makes much more sense as it gave an idea of how much information is really out there. So next time you're talking to a friend and say, "Hey, let me Google that," just think about how thankful you should be that you aren't saying, "Hey, let me backrub that." The hit cartoon show Archer had to change the name of the spy organization once the terrorist group took up the name ISIS. But that's not the only people that had to make a change. In fact, they even forced the change of a chocolate branding. Originally going by Swiss Italienes Specialiente, or Swiss Italian Specialties, they started making chocolate in 1923. They have had 4 generations working in this company. They are quite famous and very successful chocolate makers. In 2013, they were going by the name Italio Suisse, which had lasted them since 1938. They decided to go short and sweet by naming their company after the Egyptian goddess Isis, being the friend of artisans. Obviously, though, that soon had to be changed when the terrorist group reared their ugly heads. So they changed the name again, this time to Le Beard. Thankfully, their sweets are still being made, and looks like they're soon going to be celebrating their 100th anniversary. South Park fans will remember the episode about Jared from Subway. He stated he had lost weight because of his AIDS, and that he was going to share his AIDS with his girlfriend. Obviously, he was talking about assistance rather than the disease. This wasn't the first time this type of mistake was made, and it wasn't originally in fiction. In the 1970s, people were looking for a way to lose weight without much in the way of exercise. In came the AIDS candy, though they resolutely stated it was not a candy. It was an appetite suppression chewable from the Campana company. This was first introduced and registered as a trademark in 1946, which predates the disease. Obviously, the name needed to be changed after the AIDS, or Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, was first clinically observed in the US in 1981. Initially, the sales were not affected, but by 1988, they announced that they were seeking a new name as sales had dropped by 50%. They changed the name to Diet AIDS. Still not a great improvement. The product was finally withdrawn from the market. On a side note, the original advertising design was worked on by one David Bowie before his career as a musician. But even with his help, the unfortunate naming was more than could be dealt with. So there are 5 cases in which a company has decided to change either their name or the name of one of their products. In one instance, the change wasn't enough to save the product from negative association, even though they had the phonetic construction first. So what do you think of the list? Is there a name change that happened sometime in history that you think should have been mentioned? Was there a name change that surprised you? Leave a comment down below, send us a tweet, or leave a post on our Facebook page and let us know. As always, thank you very much for watching. And stay tuned for more from Ollamh Productions.
If you wanna see
John, how does a person know what reel to roll? Did Howard Hughes always have stolen Nazi propaganda films lined up to show people? We can take out a security drone, but where did we drop it from? You should have been able to see our feet. You should have been able to see our feet.